Welcome to Laos, a mystical Southeast Asian country with a history that stretches back almost 10,000 years, scarred by a legacy of war.
After years of secrecy and silence, we are now learning a lot about Laos.
And defined by its natural beauty. Being one of the poorest countries in the world, until recently, Laos was one of the least visited countries on the planet. But things have changed. With only 5,000 visitors in 1995, the country now sees more than 4 million visitors every single year, and it was about to get 2 more.
Okay, so we're on the bus now, heading towards the Laos border. What's the town that we're going to, Josh?
Chang Kong.
Right, so we're on our way to Cheng Kong, which will then cross over into Laos, and we're staying just on the other side of the border tonight.
The Thai-Laotian border in the north of the country runs along the Mekong River, the 12th longest river in the world. The plan was this: take a slow boat from the Thai border down the Mekong all the way to the ancient capital of Luang Prabang. It would take 2 days, but first we had to spend a night in the border town of Hui Xia.
So we've just arrived in Laos. We got here around about 3 hours ago after crossing through the Thai-Lao border, which was relatively pain-free. It was pretty good. We got there, paid our $35 for our visa, filled out all the paperwork, got that over and done with. We were across the border here in less than half an hour, I'd say. It's really nice. It's really just chilled out and relaxed. And we're staying in a nice hostel tomorrow. We're getting picked up at 10 a.m. to take a slow boat down to Luang Prabang, the old Laotian capital. It's going to take us 2 days on the boat to get down there, but if it's anything like this, that's more than okay.
On the way down to Luang Prabang, we became fast friends with a group of people from all over the world. And little did we know it at the time, but we'd be traveling with this group on and off for the next 2 months. So, having said that, let me introduce you to this new cast of characters. We have Alex from Canada, we have Barbara, Sylvia, and Ali from Switzerland, we have Newt, Kelly, and Lisa from the Netherlands, and we have Alexandre from France. I think that's everybody. It took us 2 days to make our way down to Luang Prabang, staying overnight in the riverside city of Pak Beng, where Josh and I became beer pong champions. But we eventually made it down to the ancient capital. The first Lao kingdom, called Langshang, originated here in the north in the middle of the 13th century, with Luang Prabang as its capital. The kingdom eventually dissolved into 3 separate states in 1694, before being reunited by the French in 1893 when the country came under colonial rule. Luang Prabang was a great place to kick back and relax, walk around the old city, see a far too crowded sunset, and jump into some waterfalls. But after a few days in the ancient capital, Josh, Alex, and myself broke away from the group and travelled up north to the village of Nong Khiaw, nestled in the Nong Khiaw River. And the trip left us very hungry.
So made it to Nong Khiaw. A long 4-hour bus ride up. With some nice scenery, but now I've got my noodles, I've got my view, and I've got my friends.
Cockle-doodle-doo. It's like an out-of-body experience.
Thank you. Is that for me?
Nong Khiaw was a pretty sleepy town, which is pretty reminiscent of the country as a whole. But it's definitely worth a visit, if only for the stunning viewpoint that the town has.
I'm really excited to see the sun come down over the mountains. I think it's going to be beautiful.
At this point of the trip, me and Josh had seen some pretty spectacular sunsets. We'd seen the sunset over the wheat fields in the Nullarbor, over the vastness of the Indian Ocean. The top of Tiger Cave Temple was a particularly good one, but none of them compared to the sunset that we saw in Nong Khiaw. still sticks with me as the single most beautiful sunset that I've seen on this entire trip. Okay, so it's our second day here in North Laos. Today we were originally going to go to Muang Noi, which is about 11 kilometers up the river. But we went to the boat office this morning and we found out that there's only one that goes in the morning and then there's not one that takes us back in the afternoon, and we've got to get on a bus tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and the boat that goes tomorrow morning wouldn't get us back here until like 10:30. So we've come up with a plan B. We've come and we've rented some mountain bikes for the day, and we're going to cycle around and visit some of the local villages. Josh, what happened?
So we're like about 2 minutes in, I'm riding along, staying on my bike snaps and I take a bit of a tumble. So I've ruined a pair of pants with blood, which is great. Blood doesn't come out, I've realised over here. So, you know.
Great start to the trip. Northern Laos is an absolutely stunning place. We took the rented bikes and explored some of the surrounding countryside, and while we were doing that, we met some of the locals. And we learnt how this now peaceful and serene landscape was once the scene of terror and fear.
For the last year or so, we've been heavily de-escalating the undeclared war in Vietnam. At the same time, we've been heavily escalating not only the undeclared but the undisclosed war in Laos.
When the French left in 1953, Laos declared themselves an independent and neutral state.
With the end of the Indochina War in 1954, Laos was given complete independence.
However, despite this declaration of neutrality, there was trouble on the horizon.
The security of all Southeast Asia will be endangered if Laos loses its neutral independence.
By the mid-1960s, the Vietnam War was in full swing.
For 1,000 miles, the borders of Laos march with those of North Vietnam. And for a further 300 miles, Laos borders on South Vietnam.
And in 1969, the United States began a brutal and sustained bombing campaign against this neutral country. This bombing campaign resulted in more than 2 million tons of explosives being dropped on Laos, equaling to one plane load of bombs being dropped on the country every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day, for more than 9 years. The cave that Josh, Alex, and I were standing in, like many of the caves in the surrounding area, provided refuge for the locals during this time period. The one that we were standing in particular, doubled as a hospital, a school, and a government office.
No Lao war in Vietnam war. They may have family, we live here, the broken leg. Still from the Minh book. The American don't like Laos, don't like Vietnam, don't like India.
The next day, Josh, Alex, and myself headed down from Nong Khiaw to Vang, a medium-sized town 7 hours south of where we currently were. A 7-hour minibus ride that slowly turned into a 9-hour bus ride, and then a 10-hour bus ride, and then a 12-hour bus ride. It turns out our little bus that couldn't broke down 3 times on the way down to Vang Vieng, but in the end, we did eventually make it there. So what is there to do in Vang Vieng? Well, let me think. 2 words. Dune, buggies. Okay, so this was something that me and Josh actually had no idea about before we visited Vang Vieng. You can rent these things from all over town, costing around about $70 per buggy per day, which, when you're buying lunch every single day for 15,000 kip, can seem a little bit on the expensive side. But believe me when I say, this was without a doubt the most fun that we had in the entire country. have dune buggies for the day, here are two things that you need to check out near Vang. One, the water park, and two, the viewpoint. After a few more days in Vang Vieng, it was time to hit the minibus again, as we made our way down south towards the Lao capital of Vientiane. The Patouche was built just after the French left, as a monument to all those who had lost their lives in the War of Independence. And it seemed like an odd stroke of irony to me that this monument looked eerily like its French cousin in Paris. Located 25 kilometers and a 70,000 kip tuk-tuk ride southeast of the city is Buddha Park, or known as the locals as Xiang Qiong. Lao, like a lot of their surrounding neighbors, is a predominantly Buddhist nation, and for a lot of Laotians, Buddhism actually shapes their daily lives, with a lot of people getting up before dawn to give alms to the monks that wander the streets. The park stands as a testament to that rich Buddhist history, with over 200 religious statues depicting everything from the world's largest stone reclining Buddha to a Buddhist sun deity devouring the sun. As we made our way back to town, there was one last place in the Laotian capital that we just had to visit.
Today in Southeast Asia, President Obama promised $90 million to help Laos clear millions of unexploded American bombs that were dropped decades ago.
During the American secret bombing campaign against Laos, more than 270 million cluster bombs were dropped on the country. Up to 80 million of these bombs didn't detonate, leaving the Laotian countryside littered with unexploded ordnances, essentially turning the entire country into a minefield.
We see the victims of bombs that were dropped because of decisions made half a century ago, and we are reminded that wars always carry tremendous costs.
COPE is an organization that helps the victims of these unexploded ordnances. The museum that was set up by the organization and is centered in the middle of Vientiane gives an overview of this horrid tragedy that still claims up to 300 people's lives every single year. In the 40 years since the bombing concluded in Laos, more than 20,000 people have been killed by these landmines, with only 1% of them so far being cleaned up. If you ever do visit Vientiane, I would highly recommend you go out to the COPE Center and learn about the history of this country and what's been done to it, but also the amazing work that COPE is doing. COPE goes out and fits people with state-of-the-art prosthetics that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford, and helps with the rehabilitation of victims of these unexploded ordnances. They do really, really fantastic work, and if you would like to make a donation or learn more about the organization, I will leave a link down in the description and also somewhere around me. Our time in Laos was slowly coming to an end. We had just one more stop. It wasn't originally on our plan, but we were persuaded because, well, motorbikes are cool. Thakhek is located 6 hours south of the Laotian capital and home to the Thakhek Loop, a 3-day motorcycle adventure through the southern countryside. Okay, so we've just made it to our motorcycle rental agency. It's got the most hilarious name. It's called Pokemon Go Motorcycle Rentals, which I assume they were established 2 years ago. But yeah, gonna get us some automatic scooters and have ourselves a little adventure. Hey, Future Tom here. Just wanted to take a step outside, get some decent lighting on my face. Quick note, never ever book, if you are in Thakhek, with Pokemon Go. I mean, the warning signs were there. The first warning sign was obviously when we booked our motorcycles with a company called Pokemon Go. But for reasons that will become glaringly obvious in the next couple of minutes, I would recommend literally any other motorcycle rental company in Thakhek other than Pokemon Go
if you ever go there. Hey Josh, you got any thoughts on Pokemon Go?
Pokemon Go? You mean Pokemon Go yourself? Dude, those people, I swear to God, do not book your motorbike through that dog excuse of a motorcycle rental company. You'll be better off literally just going, giving them your money, and then just saying, don't worry about giving me the bike, because it's less hassle to not get the bike off them. Point is, don't rent from Pokemon Go. Rent from somewhere.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, gonna give a motorbike a bit of a ride. See what happens. Haven't ridden a motorbike in a couple of years. So we're like about 2 minutes in. I'm riding along. Something on my bike snaps and I take a bit of a tumble. So hopefully all goes well.
And we were off. It was everything we'd ever hoped for. Great scenery, the wind in your face, that feeling of being alive that you can only find on the back of a bike. This lasted for about 1 hour.
So, a bit of sad news with the motorbike trip. We're about 45 minutes into it, and well, it turns out that I got a dud bike. So now I'm kind of stuck on the side of the road on a Laos highway with a busted bike, and it like actually literally smells of bullshit.
Yeah, let me grab the bike.
So we were able to get a hold of the motorbike rental place. They've called a local mechanic to come bring us a bike. It's exactly the same as the one that was broken down. But look, we've been stopped at this restaurant now for about an hour and a half. Originally when he called, he said it would be an hour. So, you know, I guess they're on Lao time. I guess we'll just keep on waiting until it shows up. Hopefully it's not too much longer. Still got a bit of driving to do today, so.
Eventually, we made it to our first stop. Just 4 hours later than we expected.
We made it, and we definitely didn't drive motorcycles in the dark, Mum.
Right, so just woke up. It's ridiculously early in the morning, but we're ready for day 2, the Thakhek loop on our bikes. Yesterday was a very boring day about driving mainly just down a road. Today we're actually going off the main road. We're going down some paths, and it should be a lot more interesting scenery today. So very exciting. It's just too early. So our first stop is Kung Law Cave, which is about an hour's drive from here. We'll pick up some food on the way. But yeah, 7 kilometer long river stretches inside of the cave. You take a boat, 3-hour round trip.
What did I just do? I didn't zip up my pocket, so my phone fell out of my pocket at 80 kilometers an hour. And it broke.
Nice.
Yay! Josh doing Josh things.
All right, day 2, bike 2, down. Give us a lowdown.
It's the situation as it stands. The short version is that it's 4:15 in the afternoon. We're in the same place we were at 6:15 this morning when we woke up.
Okay, so somewhat of a solution. We're going to end up just leaving the bike here in this town. The nice man from this guest house / restaurant that was helping us to repair it, he replaced the spark plug on it. He's going to be looking after the bike. He's going to take it to the bus stop tomorrow. It's going to go back to the motor rental company. But essentially that means that it's now like, what, 4:45 in the afternoon. Sun goes down at 6 o'clock. And on top of that, the place that we're going to is 2 hours away, and that's by car. So by motorbike it's going to take a little bit longer. So it's going to be a little bit of night driving today. Nobody's really that happy about it, but I think we're going to be alright. Smash cut, which was crashing into a fence in the middle of the night. Okay, here we go.
On day 3, all we had to do was basically ride back. And as we did, we found ourselves taking in the countryside one last time and realizing how lucky we were to be here. All we had to do now was get back to town without having any more breakdowns. We were about a 5-minute drive away from the rental place when the last bike broke down, until, by some divine miracle,
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you bike number 3. Let's get this piece of back. It's starting!
And just like that, our time in Laos was over. All we had to do now was endure a 23-hour bus ride to the Cambodian city of Siem Reap with a brief stopover in Pak Se.
Alright, so we just arrived here in Pak Se. It's dumb time. It's 4:30 in the morning. Okay, so we've just taken a 3-hour minibus ride to the border. We're now transferring over to a tuk-tuk. It's going to take us right up to the immigration office where we're going to cross over into our 6th country, Cambodia.
As we left the country, we were given the opportunity to reflect on our time there, on the things that we had done, and the things that we had learned. Laos is a complicated country with a complicated past, and its history has defined the country that it is today. After centuries of turmoil, shifting powers, and wrongdoings, the Laotian people have finally won a hard-earned peace. Its beauty and its people left a real impression on Josh and I, and as we left, the future only seemed bright for the country.